Aaron Mate. Is it? I always thought.
Yes, you said it right.
So he was watching the Lawrence O'Donnell, and here's Joe Biden going on because he has a bad record with the Iraq War. He is super for it. I didn't mean like he voted for it. He like voted for it, and then afterwards he was still for it, and then he wagged his finger at the Democrats who didn't vote for it, even after the war. Okay, so here we go. So here's what he says now. Here's what he's saying now.
Look, the reason I voted the way I did was to try to prevent a war from happening because, remember...
He's literally saying he voted for a war because he was trying to prevent a war. And I don't know if you know, oh, by the way, I forgot, up is down, down, and black is now white. He voted for the Iraq war because he was trying to avoid a war. Now watch.
Yeah, it's like that time that I hit that lady.
Yeah, because you're trying to avoid her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there was bad flooding near my neighborhood, so I turned on a hose to stop the flooding.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I voted to turn on the hose during the flooding because I didn't want flooding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're crazy if you don't support me.
That's right. Here we go.
The threat was to go to war. The argument was because Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. So he said that I need to be able to get the Security Council to agree to send in inspectors to put pressure on Saddam to find out whether or not he's producing nuclear weapons. And at the time, I said, that's your reason. All right, I get it. That was the rationale was that's the way to not go to war because I didn't believe he had those nuclear weapons. I didn't believe he had those weapons of mass destruction.
So he was like, I thought they'd send in the inspectors, they'd find out that he doesn't have them, we won't go to war. That's what he's trying to say. There's a problem with what he's saying. There's videotape of him saying the exact opposite. Would you like to see it? Well, here it comes. So here's him after the war has even started. So him trying to avoid a war, here's him bragging about that he got the war he voted for. Here he is. Watch this.
9 months ago, I voted with my colleagues to give the President of the United States of America the authority to use force. And I would vote that way again today. It was a right vote then, and to be a correct vote today.
That's in July of 2003. So if he was voting to avoid a war, the war had already started. I'm sure it was already disastrous. And here he is being indignant about being for this war. After it started, he wasn't saying, I voted for the war to avoid this. He's saying, I did it, we're in there, and I'd do it again. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is from people who are trying to oppose Trump for lying, being corrupt and lying. These aren't gaffes. Joe Biden is a sociopath. Joe Biden is a pathological liar. This isn't a gaffe. And of course, Lawrence O'Donnell's such a good newsman that he lets Joe tell this lie. Because Lawrence O'Donnell, A, has done zero research, or B, is just a tool of propagandists. I'm going to go both. Lawrence O'Donnell, willing propagandist and a willing tool. Because that's what that interview is. So that's the problem. So let's watch it again one more time.
Look, the reason I voted the way I did was to try to prevent a war from happening because, remember, the threat was to go to war. The argument was because Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. So he said that I need to be able to get the Security Council to agree to send in inspectors to put pressure on Saddam to find out whether or not he's producing nuclear weapons. And at the time, I said, that's your reason. All right, I get it. That was the rationale was that's the way to not go to war because I didn't believe he had those nuclear weapons. I didn't believe he had those weapons of mass destruction. And you may remember the debates we had after that period about when Colin said, anyway. So that was the...
And there's lots of, yeah, I remember that debates we had afterwards. Anyway, oh, you mean that thing Joe Biden can't remember right now? Like Lawrence doesn't go, did you just forget what you were going to say? What are you talking about?
Now, what happened was we went in, determined that...
Lawrence goes, mm-hmm. Did you see him just go, mm-hmm? Well, that's... Not like, hey, what are you talking about? And of course, that's not why you voted. Of course, we've done research. Of course, I know that you're all over the place on video saying the exact opposite. I'm sorry, you want to say something?
They have been coddling this guy since the moment he got in, especially the last couple months. They will not hold him. They won't hold any of the centrist corporate candidates to the fire. You know, that the fact if Bernie was babbling around like this, they would go bananas.
Bananas.
He's not fit. If Bernie stopped for a second and just like went, and grabbed his heart, they go, there it is. His heart. He's not healthy enough. And it's like they won't call him on anything.
So now he said he didn't think that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. That's what he's saying. That's what he's saying. Let's see if there's anything more.
They hyped what, in fact, was occurring. There was no concrete proof of what he was doing, and they still went to war. And the irony of all ironies is the first thing that Barack Obama did when...
So there you go. So they hyped it. Did you hear what he said? There wasn't any W. They just wanted to go. Now watch this. He said there was no evidence.
There are two issues. One, informing the American public, the Security Council, and the world about the evidence to allow us to make the conclusion that Saddam Hussein remains a danger because he is not cooperating, he is still harboring, and he is still seeking the accumulation of weapons of mass destruction.
That sounds a lot different than what he just told Lawrence O'Donnell. He's going to go on.
Case, I believe, has been made. And
he's saying that we have the evidence, we have the conclusions, and the case has been made. That is the exact opposite thing he just told Lawrence O'Donnell, and of course, Lawrence O'Donnell didn't push back one iota. And guess what? Who will? I am. I'm doing it. Why? Because I'm a jagoff comedian in my fucking garage. I don't get paid $30,000 a day like Lawrence O'Donnell to suck. You could be drunk and do this. Lawrence O'Donnell is completely sober, and he's like, he can't do it. Of course he can. He won't. He's getting paid not to. Now you wonder why people get their news from YouTube. So great job, Lawrence. Another great job. You're doing some great propaganda works for your fucking warmongering corporation. But here we go.
I hope now that the American people will have this regurgitated in a number of venues and fora over the next weeks, that they will be as convinced as I am.
The exact opposite of what he just said. And I hope the American people will be as convinced as I am. He just said he wasn't convinced. He thought the opposite. That he thought he didn't have weapons of mass destruction. Here he is telling you in real time, at the time when it would have helped, the exact opposite.
The second issue is whether or not they are informed, as now that they're convinced of the evidence, what is going to be asked of them.
So there you go. You should be convinced. We have the evidence. It's convincing. Here he is. Here's one more. How many videos can I show you where he says the exact opposite thing that he tells Lawrence O'Donnell on MSNBC? And the headline isn't Joe Biden lying one more time about his record. Pathological liar. Joe Biden lies again. No pushback from MSNBC hosts about Joe Biden's lies. No, none of that. Doesn't even make the news that he's lying about this. They want to talk about Trump's lies. You understand that Joe Biden has no moral center. He doesn't have any integrity. That most everything he's done in this country in government has been deleterious to working people. How's that for a nice word, Lawrence? Here we go.
There are two issues. One, informing the American public, the Security Council, and the world about the evidence to allow us to make the conclusion that Saddam Hussein remains a danger because he is not cooperating, he is still harboring, and he is still seeking the accumulation of weapons of mass destruction. That case, I believe, has been made. And I hope...
So there he is. Evidence, conclusion, the case has been made. The exact opposite thing he told Lawrence O'Donnell.
Now that the American people will...
Now the second issue...
Whether or not they are informed, as now that they're convinced of the evidence, what is going to be asked of them? Those who want to drag their feet in doing what they know must be done to say, oh, we're not going to be involved in preemption. That's a new doctrine that changes the Treaty of Westphalia.
So I don't know if you can remember back this far, But the Bush doctrine of preemption, what is that? That was when George Bush came up with this idea, or his administration came up with this idea that we're going to invade another country, a war of aggression, which is a war crime, under the guise of they're going to attack us, but we're going to attack them first. That's called preemption. That's what George Bush did in Iraq. We did a preemptive war, meaning they were going to attack us. I don't know how Iraq would ever attack us. But that's what he was saying. That's preemption. And so he's now wagging his finger at anybody who didn't want to go along with preemption. Watch. This is what he's saying.
Those who want to drag their feet in doing what they know must be done to say, oh, we're not going to be involved in preemption. That's a new doctrine that
he's trying to make people who are against a literal war crime out to be some kind of pansy.
This is the Treaty of Westphalia of, I think, 1648 or whatever the year was. That's, we get into all of that. It obfuscates the central point. Is this a bad guy?
Can you believe that? He's a bad guy. You know who's a bad guy? George Bush and Dick Cheney and Colin Powell and Condoleezza Rice and everybody who ordered a torture program. You don't think those guys are bad guys? How about the guys who have 1,000 military bases around the world, who have black ops sites, who have a torture facility in Cuba? Are those guys bad guys? They use the exact same language today. Oh, Gaddafi's a bad guy. Saddam's a bad guy. Assad's a bad guy. Maduro's a bad guy. They're all bad guys. No bad guys in the United States. Nope.
Who's violated the terms of an agreement he made to do away with weapons and the capacity to do great harm to his people, the region, and possibly the United States of America? The answer is yes, this is a bad guy. This is the guy who's violated the terms of a peace agreement. This is the guy who continues to do it. This guy has a record of demonstrating he will use those weapons. And there is an emerging pattern that convenience may throw him into the arms of who our most central and most serious enemy is now, non-state actor called Al-Qaeda.
There it is. Not only that, but he links Saddam to Al-Qaeda. Not only did he contradict everything he told Lawrence O'Donnell, which you know what that means? That means he's lying. And Lawrence O'Donnell couldn't catch him. Why? Because Lawrence O'Donnell's not a journalist. He's a propagandist. He's a paid fucking for-hire mouthpiece. The opposite of a journalist and the opposite of a tough guy. He's a go-along fucking tool. Do you see how easy it is? How come I could do this? How come I could do this? And all the powers at MSNBC, 30 fucking supervising producers and segment producers and directors and assistants and sound guys and colorists and lighting guys and executive producers and nobody could do this. But I could come in here and do this. I can do this in my fucking garage. But you can't do this on MSNBC. Jesus Christ. So there it is. There's Joe Biden, nonstop pathological lying once again. And this is the guy you're going to put up against Trump because he's a pathological liar. So we're going to have a guy who's slightly less of an asshole. This is your fucking, but he's not. Joe Biden's not less of an asshole. Joe Biden deported more fucking Hispanics than all the presidents combined since 1890. Joe Biden built those cages that Trump is putting immigrants in right now. Joe Biden bombed those Muslim countries, and that's why those Muslim refugees were ending up at the airports that Donald Trump banned. Because Joe Biden bombed the shit out of them. That's why. And you know why you have a tap on every email and telephone call and text you make? Because Joe Biden was for that. Because Joe Biden said the Patriot Act was basically the bill that he wrote in 1995. That's who Joe Biden is. Less freedom, less liberty, more corporatism, and screw the worker. And this is the guy you put, and a sociopathic, pathological liar. And this is the guy you put, this is your antidote to Trump. Now do you see why there's no difference between the parties? I mean, if you didn't already see it, you think there's a difference between fucking Joe Biden and Donald Trump? There is no difference. Except that Donald Trump isn't demented yet.
And this well, he's going to restore honor to the White House. This honor?
What honor?
This decades of lying?
Of
kidding.
being a war criminal and lying about it?
This is the lying, letting the banks get away, help create 6
Right.
million foreclosures. This is it? This is the one? These guys who had control of the House and Senate and could have given us free health care, could have given us Medicare for all, and didn't. That's the honor that's going to be restored just because his tweets are nice? So instead of being overtly a rapist, he just is a creepy hair sniffer. That's the lesser of two evils we get to have, thanks to the good old two-party system we've got, the duopoly. Awesome.
Dave Ryan says Joe Biden is the Brian Williams of politics. That's pretty good. Hey everybody, the next live Jimmy Dore show is May 1st in Minneapolis, and then we're going to Chicago. Go to jimmydorcomedy.com for a link for all the tickets to all our live shows, and become a premium member at jimmydorcomedy.com/join. We give you hours of bonus material every week. Thanks for your support.